Transform.AddForce.
There we go. Okay, I just hit record. So if you're watching this recording later, what did we just do? Not much. We said if input get key left. So if we press the left key, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to use a rigid body called player rigid. And I heard Alex say what? Player rigid. Okay. And what next?
.AddForce.
Yeah. Okay. And we can see it pops up for us. Add force. Now the real question is, it seems like, well, here we can see our transform position on the Z gave us forward. I think X is still okay because it's rotated like kind of strange, this whole world. So probably on the Y we'll be adding force. Can someone confirm that who did it already? Where did you put it?
On the X, no?
On the X? Is it on the X? Oh, that's true. We're trying to go this way. What am I talking about?
Y is up.
All right. Yeah. Okay, and we're going left, so it's probably negative. Let's see if it worked. Of course, remembering that this code could be working and 10 could just be not a big enough number. But usually when you've got the default rigid body, 10 at least causes movement. And of course, the longer you hold the left key, then you'll start to see acceleration too. Come on, computer. You can do it. All right. Oh, let's do the thing that I always forget to do and link my rigid body, which is the player. Okay. All right. Yay, sort of. Anybody know how to solve this? It's working. It's just not working exactly the way I might have hoped, right?
Now we need the camera to follow, no?
Well, yeah, but also I'm like my snake is like rolling on its side and now it's stuck. So what do I do about this?
There was a place where you could block rotation, no?
Yes, yeah. So there's a few ways to go about this. One is maybe we would think, okay, well, my rigid body, although the rigid body I think is attached to the actual form of the snake. We could check it's attached to the player. Yeah, so it's not even the collider. Somehow this thing is top heavy enough that it's rolling over. So easiest way to do it, what Alex just said, we can actually freeze some of these things. So I know, for example, that my snake should never rotate in the X. I always get lost on this. Let's see what happens. You know, he's never going to rotate in any direction, so let's just freeze all of them probably. And we'll check. So then by freezing this movement, it makes the force, of course, it's the one that I didn't check, right? Like it would have to be. Okay. I can never keep track of like rotation axes. It's too hard. There we go. So now I have a slowly sliding snake. Fine. It at least works. Clearly my speed is going to need to be quite a bit more.
And Mr. If mine doesn't like rotate, do I have to do anything or do I still do it?
Yeah, if yours is working, then leave it alone, right? I mean, maybe we'll find later in the game that it pops up and you might want to fix it, but hey, for now it works, right? All right, I'm just gonna do left and right so we have a little bit more to work with and see if my game will play. You will notice, especially if you use an animation that's like humanoid, you know, where it's quite tall, and you try to add force, it will always just fall on its face. That's where like freezing that rotation becomes important. There we go. Whoa! He's sliding around all over the place. Great. We'll notice that he can go through the walls. We should probably fix that, right? Why? Well, we had that trouble with this forest floor not really giving us a collider. And so we instead put a box collider on it, right? Which is just the floor. So now we kind of got to draw the walls in. I wonder, this is something forest side. Oh no, that's the trees. Okay. I noticed it was called forest side and I thought maybe it would work for us. I'm going to try, just for fun, to see if we can get a mesh collider that will at least recognize those sides. So let's go mesh or collider. Okay, the mesh is forest ground. Zoom is really hard for me to see anything. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, So the real question is, we could, let's do it this way. Let's see if it goes through the walls. I think we may just have to draw in box colliders on the side. Yeah, that did not work. We can try it with convex checked. But, oh, yeah, and now we have the flying snake, so that's not gonna work either. Okay. So in this case, let's just add a couple more box colliders. So what I need to do is create a wall, essentially. So this one is gonna be centered way over. So its X position might be 0. Its size is gonna be quite a bit smaller. Like, oh, that'll even work. That looks more like a wall now. -1, well, maybe -0.5, right? So what am I looking at? I'm looking at this green outline saying I want this collider to keep my character from sliding through the floor. That's pretty good, so I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste as new. So now I have another one. This one's center will be somewhere on the other side. Shoop. Just guessing at numbers, watching it travel. 11? Not quite 11, 10.5. Great. So can you see what we've done here? This is the ground, and we can see now we've drawn in basically custom colliders because the mesh wasn't working. So here's my floor. Oh, if I click off. Here's my floor. We created one wall. We created another wall. This should lock our character inside the boundaries. Yeah, so now I can slide around. Woohoo. But of course my character is getting far away. Somebody said, hey, let's, oh yeah, you can see the colliders, of course, are missing out there. So I can go through the wall again. Great. While we're at it, because we just thought of it, let's fix that. So on the ground, let's find whichever one that was. There you are, forest one. I'm going to copy this component and go over here and here, holding shift to both of those models, and do paste as new. And then I will grab the second box collider, copy it, shift, shift, paste as new. So it's just quickly taking the work we did, because this floor is actually 1, 2, 3 models. And of course, when we make our game bigger, we're going to start copy pasting these floors. So now each one of them should have the colliders in place. Yeah, I can see it there. So now we can copy paste these floors, no problem, to make a bigger level.
Wait, mister, how did you paste the all the 3 colliders?
So I can choose a collider like this here. So in the same way I would like remove it, there's one called copy component. And then when I go to the other model, I can do click on any of them, it doesn't matter, paste component as new, and then paste into here. Okay, I heard camera follow was missing. That's a good. How should we implement camera follow? Where do we start? I want my camera to follow the player.
Go to the camera and create a script.
So I'm going to need to create a script on my camera, which causes the camera to move. I actually have, well, no. The script will be the better solution, I think. Here's a funny idea. Let me just see if I believe in it before I go further. So this is like a cheating method of doing this. It's going to have limitations because we can't really control it in many ways, but it does actually work. So I'll take it. The question would be like, potentially, do we like the fact that the camera slides around so much, or would we prefer, right? Because like the camera is sliding with the player, which is kind of distracting. Or if we were to do this in script like normal, I could make it so the camera follows, you know, straight down the middle of the path and our character moves around. Let's try both ways. I'll explain what I've just done. What did I do? I dragged the main camera inside, right, underneath the player. So you see it's inside the player. That's called, well, it's called parenting. In a sense, what I did more was childing. So things that are inside another object are called children. The big one is called a parent. These things are sort of attached, if you will, to the player. So the main camera gets its position relative to the player. Since we have a script that moves the player, then I can just throw my camera in as a child. But the problem is it's locked. It's like very much, you know, attached as if it were the same object. So it kind of works. Like it, I mean, it's not terrible. It's a nice, quick and easy way. But depending on the gameplay, if this were a more complicated game where I wanted to be able to look around the scene, this would not work, right? It would be broken then. So let's unparent it and just leave it alone as its own object and take the script route, because I think ultimately it's the better choice for a wider variety of games. So let's make script called camera follow. Good to know. Now we're doing this, you know, kind of pretending it's the first time, but of course we did this once in Q1. So if you want to, you can do assets, import, we talked about this, and then just find the folder where your scripts are from some of your old games, and you can pull in those scripts. So you know, hey, I've got this really good camera follow script. You don't need to write it for every single game. At some point, you're gonna say, I have a WASD movement script. Now I have an infinite runner movement script. I have a camera follow. I have a camera follow with rotate. And you can just sort of pull those in as pre-made pieces, and you'll never write this code again. No, for now, we are gonna write it because it's good practice. Okay, explain to me in words what we want the camera to do.
We want the camera to follow the player.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, how can we, like, is there a way for the camera, like, to not get lost when you are, like, beside a tree or something like that? Because sometimes you don't see the player, like, a tree just goes in the way, you know?
You could potentially be kind of in the way.
Uh-huh. And, like,
Use it to
some
other-
way to make it transparent or something like that.
What will happen, I mean, by default, is that if the camera goes inside an object, that object will become like semi-transparent.
Oh,
Try to solve this problem. So it's
okay.
a built-in feature. Oh, we took off the camera follow, so we can't see it happen. It will sort of work. To be honest, it's not super perfect, but we could see things like if we had this camera, as we move inside the tree, you can see that it sort of starts to be able to see through the tree, right? And so if I'm inside, but only like one element or one model at a time. So if I'm inside this, I actually start to see through it. I can see through to the next tree, even though I'm still inside. So that behavior is there. What will not work automatically is, say, if I was in this position and I tilted the camera slightly down and the player's right here behind the tree, well, you won't be able to see it. So we need to also be smart about saying, okay, maybe I need a slightly upward positioning on my camera, and I'm gonna rotate it kind of downwards, right? So getting the camera in the right position matters for our game to make sure that you're not gonna get lost. It also would like kind of affect the difficulty, like how far away can you see obstacles? Can you only see an obstacle there? Can you see them coming down the path? You know, how much reaction time do you get based on where we put the camera? Okay. I've got a script. I want the camera to follow the player, but what I don't want is for the camera to zoom left and right. I really just want the camera to like go straight behind the player. What can we do?
Can we give the camera like a constant movement forward?
Oh,
And
that's
that
an interesting idea. Yeah. I like it. That's a super...
Yes, when I attached it to the player, like as a child, as you said, and just like made it central in starting position, it follows it like perfectly.
Yeah, it will. Okay, so yes, if we make it a child like this, it will follow perfectly. I'm actually saying maybe it's too perfect. mostly because I want to think about the next game. Maybe we don't care. Maybe let's deal with this in the next game. But it will follow. Oh, see, this is almost like a over-the-shoulder look that I've got going now, where it's like kind of second person. This, I don't mind the sliding. I was feeling like before when I had the camera zoomed out a bit, I didn't like that the camera was moving so much. I felt like the camera should just give me one view and the player should go like left and right inside it. Okay, maybe in the interest of time, this is kind of a simple game. Let's not go too far with it. I like Alex's idea. That's kind of smart. What do we know about the player? Well, the player moves forward at a constant speed. So we could probably just like steal effectively that script right from here. I mean, let's take a look at it. We could take its position and we just move it forward at the speed of speed. There we go. Camera moves forward constantly. Naturally, what I can imagine, there's going to be a situation where the player crashes into a log and like the camera keeps going. But at the time you crash, the game is also over. So it would almost be like an effect, right? Like it zooms over your dead body and then we reset the game. So I'm down. Let's do it. So, of course, we don't want this. We'll call it camera transform. And camera transform. We've got those red little lines. Why? Because we haven't defined this yet. So camera transform is going to be a transform component called camera transform. Remember, what do we mean when we say component? We mean anything that has a name here, right? So this is a mesh renderer component. This is a transform component. So this says my camera will have a transform component. It has a position inside of it. So that's where we get the camera transform object. We look inside of it at its position. We say, please move it forward at a speed of speed. Speed has not been defined, but it is over here. We'll make it simple and we'll just copy paste. Okay. You have to remember certain things, like if we change the player speed, let's also change the camera speed. We could link those together, but why? All right. When we run this script, let's unparent it, or I'm sure like some strange stuff will happen because it'll be like moving relative to everything. Oop, not underneath the line there. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? Someone tell me.
Forgot to attach.
Yeah, every time. It's terrible. Okay. Hey, why are you not asking me for it? Perhaps I didn't even save it, let alone not attach it. Okay, come back. Camera. Why? Oh, public transform, sorry. If you don't put the word public, it will not show up in the menu. That can be a feature, right? Like some things you want to hide from yourself when you're looking at it, some things you want to show. But if I don't have a public transform, then there's no way to link it. Okay, and of course I forgot to link it because I never remember. All right, so this particular, zoom, you're in the way. This particular transform is going to be linked to, and we'll look for main camera. So notice you can search up here if you know what it's called. You could also drag it from here into the box. Nice and easy. Okay. Have I done what I need to do this time? There we go. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm going to go with the parenting thing is easier. Somehow, maybe because this is at a higher position, we're getting like a parallax effect. No idea. Okay. I'm just going to uncheck it. That'll deactivate. Maybe we'll come back to it in a different life. For now, you know what? It's not that bad. I'm more interested in some gameplay. I want some collisions to happen, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
How did you remove the thing that like it stopped rotating?
In my player, and make sure you've got the player object because we have those little child models, but make sure the main player. it's in the rigid body component. And then it won't be obvious because this might be closed, but here in constraints. And then you can freeze a rotation. So I've actually done it everywhere. And like, hey, this thing never needs to rotate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. This is good. We've got gameplay, and we've got, you know, the very beginnings of a level. So now we need something to happen. We need to like collect something. We need to build a crash. Crashing might be our first step. So who remembers how we would even start with this? In English, when you, oh, there's Alex on a different computer. When you touch one of these things, you know, the game ends. That's what I want. How do I turn that into code? When the player touches one of these things, you know, the game ends or whatever. How do I start?
Mister, I need help.
Okay, what do you need help with?
With my movement stuff and my camera.
Okay, let's have you share your screen. Let's see if we can get someone else to debug it.
Look, when the zoom thing is in the way.
Classic.
It starts and it goes, but I cannot go left or right. It gets stuck.
Okay, I think it's getting stuck on like something. So let's take a look at your player on the left.
What?
Oh, I see it. Does anyone see it? It's a script problem. There you go. So you have the transform component linked, which we use for that constant forward motion. That's why I did that. But we didn't link the rigid body, which is where we were using A and D. Why did it get stuck in the middle of nowhere, though? That's a little bit weird. What's happening?
Maybe a problems with the collider of the floor. Like, it's
Good thought. Can we see the floor collider? Let's click on the floor.
Wait, where was the floor collider?
We attach to one of those floors. So maybe just use the, yeah, like that. Just click on it. We should be able to see what we've got. You don't have any collider there, do you?
I think I did.
Maybe, okay, go back up to the like forest one clone, the parent object. The bottom one, I think, seemed to be the one that's closest to us. Yeah. Okay, nothing there. So then forest ground inside. So now you can see, you know, we've selected that object, right? The side is just the trees. This thing should have a collider somewhere. It's kind of weird, actually, that your character isn't falling through the floor completely.
I did have one. I don't know where it went.
All right. I would say add it back, like do add component and box collider, and then you're gonna have to adjust, you know, center, width, whatever, and make yourself a floor, and then you'll need to do 2 more box colliders to make walls.
Everything is weird.
I'll try. I don't need to. Good. And then just, I mean, technically it can be thick. We don't really care, but you do need to adjust the center point to go down. So that's its size. The line above is center. And so you can, yeah, up there. So there, figure out where it needs to be centered on.
We'll get stuck. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's weird that it could get stuck on anything, to be honest.
I mean, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there. I agreed. Anybody else see something? Like, how are you not falling through the floor? Without a collider, you really should be.
I used to have one.
Forest ground mesh.
I mean, I don't know if it's my script.
Sure, let's take a look at your player's movement script.
I think there's a box like on the object in which it looks as if it's like colliding with.
Like he must have a collider.
Right there? Like
Oh, what is that? Yeah, there it is. Look. Yeah, well spoken, guys. I did not see that. Okay, notice if you leave play mode, your player's collider is that green box way out in front of you. So that is where the physics is happening. So you've got to get that, mess with center and size to get that box to appear on top of your player.
Oh, I had that already.
That's the issue, though. That's exactly it, because that box up there is crashing into the obstacles in the environment.
-0.
Perfect. Yeah, you got it. Okay, that'll fix it.
Okay.
Well spotted. I think that was Alex, Danielle. Good. Okay. Here we go. Back to it. All right, I want some obstacles. I want the game to end, something to happen when I crash into a tree or a rock or in anything, any kind of obstacle. How am I going to go about it? Like, I should be dead right now. When you crash into an obstacle, kill the player. Therefore, when usually becomes if. So if the player crashes into an obstacle, kill the player. How do we find crashing? What's crashing in Unity called?
Collision.
A collision. So I want to find out, was there a collision between this obstacle and my player? That means I can put the script in a lot of places, but I'm going to have one player and lots of obstacles. So better, in my mind, to only do this once and to put the script on the player. We have options. We can add it to this. We can create a fully new script. So depending, I kind of call this runner movement, and so maybe I want to leave it untouched for some future project. Instead, I'll say like die on crash will be my new script. So you can have multiple components of the same type on a player, no problem. Assume it's coming, it's just waking up. There it goes. Okay, die and crash. Let's take a look. So the function that's called when two objects touch is not start and is not update. What's it called? Something with collision.
It was like OnCollision.
Does it look familiar, at least?
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll notice some of this stuff, it's like, oh, like, why is it done that way? Well, kind of because it is. I mean, over time, people found ways to optimize. So for example, update. Update is called once per frame. I mean, that's at least 30 times a second, maybe 50, 60, 100, depending on the computer. Is it efficient to be checking if every single object has touched every single thing, every single frame? Well, no, right? It's gonna slow your game down. So instead, they found like these like subsystem ways of accidentally or only triggering the collision when two things that are actually moving have been checked. Like there's lots of work that's happening in the physics engine that we never see. The outcome that we see is there are special functions like OnCollisionEnter. So what do we know about this function? It's executed whenever the thing that it's attached to has a collision with something else. Again, collisions don't mean crashing. It just means that two colliders touched. I mean, you could have a code collision where you go through a transparent object to make something happen. That would be fine too. All right. It's given us some default stuff. Things in light blue are the types. So it's what type of object is it? A collision. This is its name. So I can call this anything like player collision. It gives us the default name, but I'm going to change it just so we know you can. So this is the part where we kind of just remember things. So we have player collision. That's this collision. The collision contains lots of information, like the speed at which they hit, the mass of the two objects, what the two objects were called, what's going to happen next. So dot collider, we've seen this one, means the thing that hit me. So from the collision, find the thing that hit me, and then we're going to use its tag, check its tag, and then we're going to see if it equals something. So now I'm going to go back and turn this into an if statement. If the collisions collider's tag equals obstacle, not today, but at the beginning of class, next class, I'm going to talk about making a cheat sheet. This is a really important part of learning a new language. Like in any language, if you were learning French or Italian or Chinese, you would have a vocabulary list and you would, go back and look at it, or when you get stuck writing something, you'd kind of look at your list. We should all kind of be making our own vocabulary list for Unity. Yes, can you search it? Of course, but you're going to turn up hundreds of functions. It would be better for us to be like, okay, making a player move, Rigidbody.AddForce, or Transform.position equals new vector. And just having those little phrases help you to be like, oh, that's how I do it, right? And over time, yes, you become more comfortable, more fluent in the language. You'll quit looking at your notes. But initially, like remembering this, you just have to remember. There's no obvious way to do this. You just have to know that, hey, this is a way that we can do it. So, what have I said? When there's a collision, check if the collision's other thing, the collider is the other thing that hit me. Check if its tag is equal to, note that we use two equals when we're not sure. It's like the subjunctive of coding, is equal to obstacle. I've not set this up yet in my game, so let's go do it. I need to start tagging things with obstacle. So quickly, shift, well, if I can get in a view on here. Shift, shift, shift. Those are all my obstacles for now. And because I'm smart, I'm going to also hold shift and drag over all of these because I'm going to use these to spawn the rest of my level. So everything on here that is an obstacle is now selected. You notice it doesn't have a name because they all have very many different names, but what we can give them is a tag. We'll call it, oh, I do this every time too. Unfortunately, when you add a tag, it also deselects everything you've got selected. Okay. That tag needs to be called obstacle. Well, I mean, it could have been called anything, but I called it obstacle here, so it's got to match when we come over here. So there we go, obstacle. So now, unfortunately, because I do this every time also, I have to reselect everything. There. Obstacle is now a choice, so all these things are now tagged obstacle. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, we haven't actually set anything up. We could do a little debug log. Debug log is going to print to the console like whatever we say here. You can do this or not. I'm just mostly doing it to show you that yes, the collision is actually happening. So what are we going to see? It didn't like my single quotes, did it? Double quote language. Here in the console, we're going to get those log statements. So I should see that we hit something. Uh-oh. Nothing. We have a problem. What could it be?
Do you have to put like destroy or end game or something?
Yeah, for something to actually happen, we need to destroy the object. I had set this up just so, hey, if there's a collision, let's shoot it to the console. It's like the simplest possible thing is that we should see a message appear in the console. I'm actually surprised. Collision, player collision. If player collision, collider, tag equals obstacle, debug log, everyone's happy. Right. Shall we save this? Make sure all these things actually did get tagged. Obstacle. Sure, it looks like they did. Obstacle, obstacle, player. Here you are. Player has the script. If anyone see a mistake, now's a great time to tell me. There it went. Okay. I don't think I did anything. I hit save. Maybe I didn't save it the first time. Good. So this debug log thing is a nice way to just test complex behavior and be like, hey, is the most basic function working? Yes, it recognizes that we hit something. Great. Alex made a good point. So what should we do when we hit something? I mean, this is a gameplay decision. Like what we had done in the past was we destroyed the snake, right? But then like the game's kind of just dead. Restart, I think, is a nice option.
Yes,
My
restarting last game I did that. Huh?
What would it mean to restart in this case?
Maybe if it collides with, I don't know, the tree or the rocks, like go back to the starting position.
Okay, I like that. So we could say, send it back to the starting position. Let's make that one step more code-like. So we want to move this object somewhere, right? To its starting position. So let's think about it. Let's figure out what its starting position is. Well, wherever we are right here, right? This thing, this is the player when the game begins, and here's a position, X, Y, Z. So this is something that we could use in code. I like it, let's do it. So if we hit an obstacle, then let's move the player to the starting position. How do we do that? What component, whoa, what's the name of the component that position is part of?
Transform.
Transform, good. All right, so I'm just helping you start to get used to reading the menu. You're like, okay, I want to change rotation. Well, how do I get to rotation? Rotation is inside transform. Transform is attached to player. So we're going to need a little bit of a reference. So we need a transform, and it's going to be called, I don't know, the player, whatever you want to do. And then when we've got it, we can say, oops, and I'm going to call it public. I do this a lot, so we can access it later. Okay, player dot position. So that means player is actually transform. It's kind of confusing. Maybe we should call it player transform for like teaching purposes. Because we're not linking to the whole player object. We're linking only to the component that is a transform. Player transform dot position. So inside the transform component, position. Which transform component? Well, we have to link it afterwards. Okay, let's set it to a new vector 3. That's just the way it is. That's grammar. We should add that to our cheat sheet. And what are the values? Well, I mean, we could probably cheat and call it 7, -9, -18. I think this will work. I mean, I don't think any of those shifts, in fact, like we could probably do this 7, -9, -18, great. And then we'll get this little animation, right, where it falls to the floor. That'll be fun too. Okay, let's try it. It will also say in the console that, you know, we hit something. I don't know if I care. We'll leave it in there for now. Save and let's play. I did it again. I remember like 1 in 10 times, right? So here's the error. Let's read the error. Unassigned reference, right? The variable has not been assigned. You probably need to assign the transform player variable. Yes, I do. What happened? Well, I talked about a transform in my script, and then I didn't tell it which one. Here's my script, player transform, none. You can probably see that I can because it's behind Zoom. I'm gonna look for a player and find the player object. There it is. Oh,
can you go back to the script?
yes. So I'm creating a link to the player's transform component because I want to modify its position. Then if the collision is with an obstacle, I will just say its position now equals this particular location. I got those numbers by just clicking on the player and checking, hey, where is it when we start?
Yeah, the numbers that have decimals for me have a red line under them. Should I use?
Oh, if they have decimals, you need to also include the letter F for float. Why? Because you do. It's a weird thing. If you put in a decimal, you have to also put F after it.
And I have a question. What does this do?
What does this do? Can someone explain? What does this do? This little piece of code.
If the player hits an obstacle, it returns it back to its initial position.
Yeah. If,
well, the position.
Yeah, so here is saying when a collision happens, move to this line. If the collision was with a thing that had the tag obstacle, which we have set up, right? I mean, the floor isn't, but trees are and rocks are, and all these things are tagged obstacle right here. If that's true, then we're gonna do something. What are we doing? We're taking the player transform, its position property. So the player transform component, whoa, position property, and we're gonna reset it to this exact spot. So we're imagining, you know, the game has progressed, oops. Anyway, you know, I'm somewhere down here when I crash. So my position is gonna constantly change like as the game is being played. The second, the frame, the instant that I crash into an obstacle, this position will be reset to, you know, 7.2, -9, whatever. The same as if you typed it in just like this.
Mr.
Except mine, because I didn't actually choose the player object, it's gonna be weird. It was a component. There.
Mr. What if my player just like gets through the obstacle? Like,
then your obstacle probably does not have a collider on it.
It has a box collider, but
okay, box collider could work too. Does your player have a collider on it?
Yes.
Okay, then now you share your screen. Those are the obvious ones.
Yes. So.
Okay, there's the log. Let's see.
Here, player.
Player has a box collider. We can, I think I can see it. Seems to be around the player. Yeah, good. Okay.
And then also this log
has a box collider. Turn off the check that says is trigger under box collider.
Well, it has a mesh collider and
actually both. So you could probably even just erase the box collider. Doesn't matter.
So
one of those.
So I take the box.
But the key that I want to show you is that is trigger is a special behavior for colliders that you want to be kind of invisible. So a trigger is going to make that happen. You use this for like, you know, some games where like you enter a new area and then like stuff starts happening, Well, it was a collider marked is trigger. So it allows the physics collision to trigger, but it removes the actual like bumping into stuff part. So on objects, you almost never want is trigger, right? But that should be
So
good.
I uncheck it?
Off, yeah, leave trigger off, because trigger means don't actually like have a physics interaction, only, you know, run the script. So now hit play, let's see.
Mister, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
With my die on crash script, when I touch something, it sends my player like way down the road instead
no.
of recording.
Okay, let's take a look. What's on JP? You're still going through.
Yes. I don't know.
Oh, I see. Your mesh collider has no mesh. Do you see this? So the bottom line mesh. Mm-hmm. And now, goodness, what's it called? I don't know. Log. Probably search like. Hopefully, it's called log.
It was called 5 times 2.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Log.
Oh, you had it. The 5 times 2. That was it. I saw it. It was there. Do the 5 times 2.
Yes.
Yeah, that.
Yes.
Right. So it's looking for what's the shape, what's the mesh shape of the collider. It had no shape, so this should probably. Whoa! Oh boy!
They take the rigid body.
Could have the rigid body off. Just.
Yes.
All sorts of exciting stuff happening.
Okay.
Yay!
Thank you.
Okay, good. Alex Garcia, my guess for you is that you have an issue kind of like what I just did. So I'll show you and then you tell me if it works or not. Make sure that you have chosen player and not like one of the parts of your player, right? We made these snakes up.
Yeah,
This thing's transform is like 0, but player's transform is very different. Okay, you share your screen now, let's see. Okay, so player is currently selected and its transform is like whatever, those numbers, fine. Ah, where'd you go? Okay, so player's beginning transform is definitely -18, 1, -17. Let's go to the script. -18, 1, -17. That's why it like jumped ahead, right? Because instead of being -17, it went like 34 units more forward than the actual start position. Yay. You got it.
Mister.
Mm-hmm.
After you're recording this?
Yes, I am.
It's because I didn't get the camera script.
Okay. We faked it because it worked good enough. we faked the camera script by making a child. So if you drag your camera like this light, right, and we drag it under the player object, it becomes a child of the player, and then it will be locked in position and will follow our player forever. It's not a very sophisticated way to do this. Like if we wanted camera rotation or anything, like it's not going to work. But this is also a very simple game. The camera is locked in behind us, so we don't really mind having it attached in like such a simple way.
And how did you make it so that it follows more closely? Because mine isn't in position.
I just moved it physically in the editor. So once I've attached it like this, that says their relationship is now relatively locked to one another once the game begins. But if I want to change it right now, if you select the camera object, you get a preview of what it will look like and just move it like any other object, right? And so whatever I do here, movement and rotation, will then be what happens in the game. All right, and so I can see like, okay, this is maybe like a little bit too downward looking, like for the game. So I think, okay, I want to go change my camera and look up slightly more.
Yeah, okay, it worked.
Okay, we got it, boom. All right, so if you hit something, you start over. Starting to think my thing should either move faster or I should have more obstacles, but it's okay. These are now like small game design problems. If I hit it, I hit that one. If I hit anything, yay. Okay, good. Now, just let's go ahead and finish off making the level. Make sure that these things are all tagged obstacle, right? If you didn't do that the first time, just drag around and select them. Make sure you tag them obstacle. Now it's going to be super easy. I think the first time, yeah, we already made sure that they're all sitting on the floor. So now I can start having some fun with my game. I get to actually like, selection mode. I can take this thing and say, okay, that was a little too far. And just Command C, Command V, copy paste. And I'm going to start adding new obstacles to the scene. And all of these, because they're already tagged obstacle, are going to work, in the way that I want them to, we think. I do a little more rocks, something like that. And now it's just up to you, right, to decide how to make the game. Next steps for us would be, hey, maybe we want some sort of score, based on how far you've run. Maybe there are coins that you collect and it's like Mario style. But for now, we've already got a game that you can actually play, right? There's a way to lose, but no way to win. But that's why it's an infinite runner. All right. I think, well, let's get rid of this frog. We don't need him. I think we're going to leave it there for now and say that your job now is to, build out the level. Let's build an actual level. Remember, this is quite a short little track. So if we want to make it longer, I could just copy paste this thing. If I wanted to cheat, I could copy paste whole segments, including the obstacles. So if I copy paste right now, I can drag this floor, including the obstacles. I mean, don't do that too much because your players might realize that you were lazy. But if you made, say, 8 different tiles, you can actually start, and this is how you could build an infinite runner, to randomly place those 8 tiles in front of your player as the game goes on. I don't know if we'll actually go that far we forgot to put the trees in there. With this particular game, but that is how you would make it truly infinite, right? Is we could set up a few basic segments of map that we know work, and then we can place one of those random, one of 10 random segments just gets placed in front of us every time we reach the end of the previous segment, and then we can play forever. Put it on the App Store, fill it with ads, and you'll be a millionaire by next week. Maybe. So I leave it with that. Your job is build out a level, something that's playable and interesting, and then let's publish it on Simmer now that we know how. Right? And then everybody can take a look at what you're doing.